All right, everyone, we're going to get started with today's event. First, I want to say thank you and welcome to everyone for joining us today for our coach conversations. In today's conversation, we are talking with 3 of our Jasper alumni who have transitioned from being a student athlete to coaching positions at Manhattan College. I'm excited to hear from these coaches, and I'd like to welcome Chris Cody, assistant coach for the baseball program, John Lovett, assistant men's and women's cross country track and field coach, and RaShawn Stores, associate head coach with men's basketball. During today's conversation, we ask that you keep your line muted, and we welcome questions from our viewers. If you'd like to ask a question, use the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We have been fortunate to have ESPN and Pac-12 network broadcaster Greg Meskel as our moderator for our conversations, and he has been instrumental in making these successful. Now I'll pass the reins over to him to start today's coach conversations.
Thanks, Whitney. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This is a great conversation. If you're a Jasper fan, you can't get a better conversation than 3 former student athletes who have now gone on to coach with the program, and we appreciate all 3 of our coaches being here with us today. We're going to hear from all of them in kind of an opening statement, opening remark here to begin, and I'll start first with Chris Cody from baseball. Chris, just tell us how you ended up at Manhattan as a student athlete, and then what made you want to work there later in life as a coach?
It's kind of a combination of things. I grew up not far from campus. It's about an hour ride to get there, up in just north of Westchester County, up in Brewster. So it was close to home. I was always kind of a homebody. My dad kind of raised my brother and I by himself. We lost my mom when I was really young. So just connection to home, being close. The campus checked all the boxes in that regard. The other factor, a strong factor, was that the head coach at the time, Steve Trimper, was also a Brewster, New York native. And he ran a lot of camps and clinics throughout the time between, I'd say, I had to start when I was about 12. So a lot of my teenage years pre-college was spent going to his summer camps and even a couple of winter camps that he would hold in our hometown. So really comfortable, got to know him really well. I trusted, we had a good relationship. So all those factors kind of combined to making me really want to stay close to home and go to Manhattan College. And the fact that it was a D1 baseball program, that was obviously a strong influence. My dad was also a big influence in me going there. He was a New York City fireman, and he knew a lot of other firemen in his career that had come out of Manhattan College with degrees, and he just knew the kind of person. He had a lot of friends in the fire department, and a lot of them, like I said, were Jasper alums. So he knew the kind of person that Manhattan College bred. So he knew that it was a solid institution. So he was definitely pushing me in that direction. As far as coming back to work, it was comfortable, familiar. Again, it's Division I. It's a Division I coaching opportunities don't grow on trees, especially, for myself that didn't have any coaching experience prior to that. I went from playing at Manhattan to playing professionally to jumping right into my coaching career back at Manhattan. So it's kind of a storybook up until this point. So it just made sense.
Now we'll turn over to John Lovett with track and field and cross country. John, same question for you. What led you to Manhattan as a student athlete, and then what led you to become part of the coaching staff?
Great. Thanks, Greg, and Whitney, too, for, first of all, inviting me to this and be part of this and see all some of my teammates. And this is absolutely great. But also, I really want to thank Mary Ann Riley, our athletic director, mainly because she had enough faith in me and hired me so I could be here today. So I want to thank Mary Ann. Why did I come to Manhattan? Well, I was fortunate to be part of a really historic high school, Hal Memorial. So I know what championships were all about and how to be the best. So I was looking for a school, a Division I school. I didn't want to leave New York. I love New York. So I really want to be a Division I school. So I go to my coach, and there's 2 schools that I'm really looking at. that I really was interested in was Fordham and Manhattan. So I said, brother, which one should I go to? And he says, write it down, the pluses and the minuses. And so one of the things I said, I wanted to be a Division I school. I wanted a school that had tradition. And we looked at Manhattan and said, a lot of tradition, over 100 years of tradition. At the time, it was about 60, 70 years of tradition. And also it says, where is it today? When if I'm going to go to Manhattan, where is it today? And then I only had to look back 1 year, in 1968, the first New York State runner, resident runner to break the 4-minute mile, which at that time was just off the charts, no one could do, happened to be Brian Kivlin that went to Manhattan. He was a senior. So I said, there's something happening up there. But also I want to be, since I've been fortunate to be coached by a lot of great coaches, I want to be part of that too. I said, I want to be another coach that gets me to another level of running. And fortunately, the state had it, that Manhattan College hired 2 of the best coaches on the East Coast in New Jersey, high school coaches. And I'd probably say probably one of the best coaches in the country at the time was Fred Dwyer and Frank Gagliano, better known as Gags. And I says, there's something special about these guys I want to be part of also. But what really sealed the deal for me was a teammate at Powell Memorial, Al Novell, which happened to be a junior at Manhattan College. If anybody knows Al, Al's a smart guy, but he's a good salesman. So what he did one day, he called me up, he says, John, have you ever been to Manhattan? I said, no. So he found the perfect day, beautiful day, go up to campus. The campus is aquatic, it's hummy, the trees are blooming. It's just a place you want to be. I put my feet on the ground at the top of the hill. I said, I looked at it, I want to be here for the next 4 years. So I said, Al, where do I sign? So that's how I decided I want to go to Manhattan. And I said, and I'm grateful for what I did. But I tell you, coming back to Manhattan, there's only 2 words I can say coming back to Manhattan. And that's Centrowitz and Gatlicker. These 2 people, I said, be part of this team that I would be fortunate to do. I'm talking about one's Olympian, one's was on a national team. I said, there's only going to be greatness out of that. And I learned in my life, hanging around with greatness, and you may get sprinkled a little bit of that. So I said, this is great. So Kerry called me up and said, hey, you want to be part of Manhattan College? Before she could even finish the sentence, I said, yes. So I'm so happy that they called me, and I'm so happy that back where I am right now, where I belong.
That's excellent, John. And hitting on a theme I think we'll hear a lot in this conversation, people with great love for Manhattan and excitement to kind of get back to where they were as athletes. Last but not least, RaShawn Storrs, your story as well. How did you end up as a part of the basketball team, and then what led you to stay on as a coach?
Well, first off, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for allowing me to be here. And I want to also thank you, Greg, Whitney, and our AD, Marianne O'Reilly. But the reason I came to Manhattan College was because of my relationship with Coach Masiello and the coaching staff at the time. And when I came up for a visit and I sat down with Coach Masiello, he gave me an opportunity to join the team, and I had to pay my first year. And also, the Manhattan College community welcomed me with open arms. So that was big for me, and it being located in the Bronx, where my family was able to come out and support me, because my family means everything to me. So those 2 played a big role in my decision-making. The reason I continued to work here, because I wanted to be a mentor to the young athletes and the Jaspers that was coming up after me. Also, I wanted to give back to the place that has given me so much.
That's excellent. And I think every one of these coaches would agree that they give a lot to their teams, but they also get a lot in return. We now want to pose the question, and some of you have kind of touched on this a bit, about what made you want to be a coach, but I'll add to that a little bit. As you got into it, what made you want to stay a coach and enjoy coaching? And Chris, you alluded to going right from a professional baseball career into coaching. So you could have tried it for a year and said, this is not for me, I'm going to do something else. What was it about coaching baseball that really resonated with you and that has allowed you to stick with it? Oh, you're muted there, Chris.
Sorry, Whitney. I didn't heed your advice. Thank you. I think just love for the sport. I mean, that's probably a common theme as well. But if my body allowed me to, I would have played the game as long, forever. But we all know that can't happen. So how can I stay involved with the game and close to the game and, as close to between the lines as possible? It was an easy decision in that regard. And once I got here, it was kind of, it brought back a lot of good memories about being on campus, and it felt natural to me. And I feel I'm still learning. I think, the day you stop learning is the day you should move on to do something else. I guess that's true of anything, but it's been fun working with the guys. The student athletes that we had when I showed up, they were very receptive. So that was obviously good to get off to a good start. And I've had good experiences each year so far.
Excellent. And John, you talked about getting the call to join this coaching staff. And when you heard the names that were involved, you said, sign me up. How do I get involved? When you think about your role, what is it that you like to do in the coaching realm? What do you enjoy about being a coach, and why are you liking this role you have on this staff that you admire greatly?
Well, first of all, my pleasure. Like, I started coaching in high school. My daughter went to Bishop Kearney High School in Brooklyn, and she asked me one day to come out and, could I help out? Ended up being the coach there for 18 years, and then I loved it. But one thing I realized, it wasn't all about winning, although I like to win, and that's what we try to eventually get to. But it's more about developing. In this case, young ladies, young girls, developing how to be better runners, but more so how to be a better person when it's all said and done. I think for me, the success that I take, not all the trophies that these girls won, but more so where they are today. Are they still running? Are they still enjoying the love of running? And that's, for me, it's like the most important thing. Going into college, and Kerry asked me to come out and be part of it, I knew that being an alum and being part of the system, and being a Jasper and all the joy that goes with it. I think that passion I have with the sport, that if I can give that to the kids, that they love the sport like as much as I love it. And it's a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of focus. But with that, you're going to be great success and be part of something that's special. The time that you're in, just like during my period of time, it was a special time. Now it's their time. If I can help them to realize what I was able to realize, then I'm a success. And I thank Kerry for giving me that opportunity.
That's excellent. And RaShawn, some of the stuff that John touched on were some of the things that you were talking about previously, getting into this coaching role to have a positive influence, to be a mentor. As you think now back on the years you've been a part of this coaching staff, you certainly know the basketball part of it, but how rewarding has the other part of it been, being able to help people grow and be a positive influence on these young men?
Well, that's been big. That's been a big part of it. Me also being considered a leader of the teams that I actually played on, and helping Coach Masiello come up with a game plan that beat Iona. And it allows me to give back to the young point guards. Just let them know that you're the coach on the court. Just playing the point guard position, you're actually the coach on the court. You have to execute the game plan from Coach Masiello to the other four guys. So that's a big role, and I've been doing that and watching film with the coaching staff as a player, and even more now. So that's been a big role for me.
We're talking with coaches here that competed at Manhattan, now have gone on to be a part of different coaching staffs. If you have a question, feel free to drop it in the Zoom group chat, and we'll get to those as we go along. Every coach we've talked to during our coach conversation series this month would agree that in addition to the sport experience, being a part of Manhattan College just gives you the opportunity to experience so much more. Chris, we'll start with you. And you had mentioned previously going on to play professional baseball. That was an experience that was launched by being a collegiate player at Manhattan. What was that experience like in the professional leagues, and how did Manhattan perhaps get you ready to compete at that level?
Yeah, it did. The best experience of my life so far. It's just going out and seeing different parts of the country and the world. I was lucky enough to travel to places I would never dream going. So, friendships that I've made with teammates that I've made, and all the, I don't know how many teams I've been a part of, probably 20 or 30, 25 teams probably. So it definitely, getting back to the Manhattan theme, being a Jasper is, it prepares you for a lot of things. So I think my time at Manhattan kind of helped me get ready for that part of, the next phase in the professional ranks. So, it's irreplaceable.
So we might have a screen share here for the
Yep.
moment. But in the meantime, we've all been on enough Zoom calls to encounter something a little wacky here and there, right, during the pandemic. John, I want to move it along to you, and kind of similar thoughts to what we're talking about with Chris, but you talked about coaching with your daughter's program, of course, and doing things after your time as a student athlete. What sort of opportunities did you get from your time as a Manhattan student athlete? So after you graduate, after you leave the college, what did that foundation in the Manhattan College experience offer you going forward?
Well, I'm in Division I coach right now, so that's one thing that I think it gave me the opportunity. It taught me how not to give up, work hard, be a champion. I was fortunate to be part of some great things at Manhattan, and winning the national championship and being part of a world record. That all carries over to that. If you stay with something and you work hard and you stay focused, you can do anything. And so I think you graduate from Manhattan College, I had a lot of opportunity to do things, and I take those values that I learned and apply them.
RaShawn, similar question to you. Being a part of this Manhattan College basketball program, first as an athlete, what sort of opportunities were you provided because you were part of that program that maybe you wouldn't have gotten otherwise?
Well, as soon as I finished playing, I was allowed, Coach Masiello gave me the opportunity to become a GA, in which I was able to receive my master's, and being the first in my family to receive my master's, that was pretty big. So I would say getting my master's.
That's excellent. Education, a huge part of all of this as well, to be able to go undergraduate coach, get the master's, already ahead of the game, to put it mildly. Everyone here has told us in one word or another their appreciation, their love for Manhattan College. So this is a very broad question, but Chris, we'll start back with you. For someone that might not be familiar with the college, what in your mind makes Manhattan College special?
I think it's a tight-knit community. Even in my time after graduating from Manhattan, other parts of the country, it's amazing what parts of the country you'll bump into somebody who knows about us, who is wearing a Jasper sweatshirt. Just the alumni network, may not have the numbers that other universities or colleges have, but it's just as strong, I think. And I always go back to just the relationships I forged while I was there. I'm just as close now as I was, as a senior with my roommates and teammates. And so that's personally my answer to that question.
John, you gave us that great visual of when you were debating between Fordham and Manhattan. You're standing on top of the hill and you realize this is the place I want to be for the next 4 years. You knew back then Manhattan was special. Now that you went and lived through it as a student athlete and now as a coach, when people ask, what do you tell them when they want to know why is Manhattan special?
Number one, it's the people that go to Manhattan. And that's from the security guard to the cafeteria worker to the teachers. That's what makes the Manhattan special. That's the first thing you're going to see. Also, I believe that the mutual respect that each one has for each other. And that you see it throughout the campus. One of the things is the quality of education you're going to get from Manhattan. If I'm going to sell Manhattan, you're going to get a great education. And they do, I believe, at least more so now than I was going to school, that they give you every opportunity to succeed in Manhattan. And so you can be what you want to be. They're going to give you that opportunity to succeed. And also it's faith-driven through the Lassallean values. And I think it's an optimistic outlook in life. And that's one of the things when I look at Manhattan, if I'm selling Manhattan, it comes clear when you walk on that campus.
RaShawn, whether you're talking to a fan at a game, maybe a recruit, someone who's thinking about joining the Jasper program, what's the thing that you talk to them about? What makes this place special in your mind?
Well, first off, you're living in the greatest city in the world, so that's the main thing. And then I also let them know that the people here at Manhattan College, you receive great support on and off the court, and everyone here is blue collar. We believe that hard work equals success. So those are the main things that I usually tell a recruit, which makes Manhattan special. And also, besides being a smaller school, you know all your professors, so you get that relationship and support that you need.
And we'll stick with you, RaShawn, here as we go to the Zoom chat here for a question from Louis Lamatina. He says, can you ask RaShawn the moment Coach Masiello cites as to when he decided RaShawn had the leadership abilities to serve as team captain? And then he makes a reference to some photographic evidence. I'm not sure what that is, but I figured you might know.
How you doing, Lou? I believe he's talking about when we went to the Bahamas and we were probably on a boat, and I was in a cast. I was actually hurt during that trip, but I was able to get the guys, attention, and Coach Mash just seeing how I was able to get my brothers to, listen to me, and we just enjoyed the trip, and that was, I think that's what Lou is talking about.
Yeah, and he just held, for those that could see him in your Zoom screen, he did hold up a photo of that moment documented there with the cast on, so that's great. Again, as a reminder, Louis, thanks for that question. If anyone else has questions, feel free to put them in the Zoom group chat here, and we'll get to those as we go. You look at the bios of all three coaches here, baseball, track and field, cross country, and basketball, all have had great moments when you look back at what they've done with the Manhattan College Jaspers. So we'll ask the question of favorite memory in your time as a Jasper. And I was leading down the sports road, but it could be something else. You're, of course, students as well. But Chris, I'll start with you. Is there a favorite memory you have when you think back on your time in Manhattan?
I have a couple of favorite memories that I'll keep just amongst myself and my roommates and comrades there. But for the purposes of this chat, it's hands down dogpiling. It's kind of a combination. The dog pile after we got the last out of the MAC championship. It was the first MAC championship we'd ever won. And we knew we were going on to play in a regional for the first time in 49 years. It was the culmination of everything we'd worked for, it happened to be my senior year. So it seemed kind of a fairy tale situation. It's, 8 semesters of grinding and summer ball and workouts. And all of a sudden, here we are. We achieved our goal, and we're not done yet. We're going to go on and play next weekend in the regional. And then the other half is obviously, with that big upset against Nebraska in 2006. That one moment kind of, I don't know if it'll ever get old for me personally to talk about. It was just a lot of fun.
You mentioned those moments and the championships. How often do you get a chance to kind of reflect on moments like that, Chris?
Lately, during this whole thing, we've gotten a lot of notoriety. A huge part of that is thanks in part to Kevin Ross and Kelly Carroll, our whole sports information department for helping that moment kind of stay relevant and get recognized. But a couple months ago, Baseball America is calling us up to talk about it. I think it was reshown over YouTube, and Baseball America decided to show it one night. In absence of live baseball throughout this whole thing. So it definitely it's neat to relive that. It's unbelievable how fast time has gone by. But, it's still very fresh in my mind and one of my favorite moments of my life, let alone my playing career.
Certainly, and if you'd like to relive that a little bit, you can check out in the comments here a link to an Instagram post that shows some of the great photos from that run. And those are the moments when you talk about college athletics. You win those championships, you make those big upsets. That helps put athletic programs on the map. It reminds people what can be accomplished at a school like Manhattan. John, I'll ask you about your favorite memory. I have an idea where you might go with this if we're talking athletics, but I'll ask you the question first. What's your favorite memory when you think back on your time as a Jasper?
You know, Greg, a lot of people ask me that question over the years, and they're all going to think I'm going to say the national championship that we won. And although it was great, it was unique, and I can go on for another 10 minutes, but what I found to be, for me, at Manhattan College, the most exciting one was when we won the Met Championship. Because on that championship, everyone on the team had a part in it. Everyone from our 50-yard dash guy to our 2-miler to our shot putter, everyone had to come and play and be on their best game. And everyone knew that. So and we were competing against some great teams. We're talking about St. John's, Fordham, Columbia, Ruck. I can go down the list. These were great. This is the golden age of running, of great runners. And we were competing against them. So you can see the enthusiasm and the excitement that as a team that we had, and just seeing your colors on the line. But the most exciting part is, of course, when you're finishing the race and we win, and seeing everyone, just the excitement of what we did as a team. And remember, we didn't have cell phones back then. You're lucky you had a phone. You didn't even have a phone. You had to go down the block and make a phone call. But the greatest part about it, that we hopped on a train to go back to school because we ran in the Armory in 168th Street, Manhattan. Hop on the train, get to the campus, and before we got there, everyone knew what we did. And the celebration of Manhattan College as a community, celebrating what we did. To me, that was the icing on the cake of competing for Manhattan College.
That's such a great memory, and especially you listed all those programs that are part of the New York City metro area. To be able to win something like that, as you alluded to, in what was the golden age of running, had to be so impactful. You brought it up as well, though, and for the group here, maybe there's some folks that have only heard about that 1973 NCAA championship that was won back in Detroit in passing, or they don't know more of the detail. What's a favorite memory from that moment, because it is such a big one in the Manhattan College history books?
Well, I'll tell you, these were tough guys that we ran at Manhattan College. You're talking about, I'm just giving an example, 4 New York City area guys go out to Detroit. Joe Savage, Tony Colon, Ray Johnson, and myself. We go out there on the same mission to win. We trained hard together. We were dedicated. We were not intimidated by anybody. We were there because we belong there and we're there to win. And that attitude, that toughness, was throughout the entire team. And that's why we won in the NC. So to have a bunch of, and not many people know, but last year, they were saying the biggest upset in all of sports, in college NCAA sports, Manhattan College was in the top 10, because we were like the little college on the hill, and we knocked down, the big schools. And that was an exciting part. And but I also add to that yeah, those guys, including myself, that went out to Detroit, that was the guys that won it on the line. But you'll forget about the guys that stay at home, the guys that we train with every day to make us better, the guys that supported us, make sure that we were ready to run. That's the whole team won, not just the guys who went out there. And that's the exciting part of that team. It was the whole 1973 team that included everybody that was out there.
And that's a moment that will always be well remembered in the history of Manhattan College athletics. RaShawn, over to the basketball court. What's a favorite memory or two that you have from your career?
Well, winning the first championship was probably one of my favorite memories, because the year before we lost to Iona by 3. And that whole summer, we would leave the score on the scoreboard during practice, and we would just grind. Like, you seen your brothers cry the year before, and then to come out and to win that championship and celebrate like that, and to have my my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, my dad, my uncles, my brothers and sisters, and your family in the crowd. That was a great moment. And to come back and then be counted out again, winning the second one, that was big. And the day I walked across the stage and received my master's, those were probably my favorite moments as a Jasper.
You talked about Iona and you mentioned them earlier as well. I think people that follow the basketball program know that every time Manhattan and Iona get together, it is a battle. As someone who's lived through it as a player and coach, can you give a little taste of what makes those games so intense?
Just the alumni, the people, everyone come out and support you, and you just get that rush, that feeling. Well, I played against Iona 3 out of the 4 years of my college career. So it's just a big-time rivalry, let alone for the ADs, for the support staff, and as I said, the alumni. So you want to win for them.
And I love that you brought up getting your degree as well. I'm curious how those feelings compare. You get to cut a net down. Maybe you're standing on a ladder after you win a championship, and then maybe you're on a stage of some kind receiving a diploma. You worked really hard for both. Are the feelings the same, different? How do you remember them?
They're both the same because they're both what were my dreams. You know, I wanted to be in the NCAA tournament. I was able to do that. And then to receive a master's was even bigger, you know. So they both weigh the same in my heart and in my family eyes as well.
We're talking with coaches that competed at Manhattan as student athletes and now have gone on to join coaching staffs from baseball, track and field, cross country, and men's basketball. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the Zoom group chat. And also, John talked in detail about the 1973 NCAA Indoor Championship. There's a great link in the chat now as well to look back in more detail at a historic moment for the Jaspers. All three of our coaches have told us in detail that the connection back to campus was one of the draws to either come back or to stay. Chris, you were telling us the excitement of you see someone somewhere else around the country, they have a Jaspers shirt on, and there's that immediate recognition of like, hey, we know each other, even if we don't. Why is that alumni connection, that community vibe so strong for people that went to Manhattan, regardless of if they were there at the same time as you or they're a current student, whatever it might be?
I think it's, you know, if an ASU student were to see someone else with an ASU sweatshirt, it doesn't seem like that big of a shock. You know, there's 40,000 people there at any given time. But, you know, you get a school that's a tenth of that size, you know. So anytime it's, you know, that's one part of it. But John mentioned it earlier, you know, it's not where you go, it's who you go with. And I couldn't agree with that anymore. You know, my experience at Manhattan is strongly dictated by, you know, the kind of guys that were on the team when I was there and the teammates I had, the camaraderie we had. I think it just kind of breeds a special kind of blue collar. You know, I'm plagiarizing the other two coaches on here with me. They're hitting on all my bullet points. It does give you a blue collar culture, and I think that stays with you afterwards. And it's exciting when you see someone else who understands what it's like to be a Jasper, and you have that common trait.
John, you hit on this a little bit earlier as well, talking about the guys that took part in those championship teams that really just worked hard and they were grinders. And is there a little something to that when you think about the appreciation for a fellow Manhattan student or alum? As Chris alluded to, it's not a gigantic school, right? You know, it's not necessarily for everyone, but it is for anyone that wants to come and work hard. Is there an appreciation for that when you see someone wearing the green and white?
Yeah, I think so. You know where they're coming from, and you know that the dedication and the commitment of the coaches, and the commitment of the student, and again the student athletes too. So the commitment of, you know, doing well in school, and so you know what goes behind that when you see them walking around wearing their colors, and so yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, wearing the green and white has always been. Well, I think I look good in green and white, so so it was a good color for me. But no, it's great. It's always great to see it. And now my grandkids are wearing it, so I feel pretty good about that.
And RaShawn, similarly, when you're out traveling with the team or you're elsewhere and you come across someone that has that Manhattan sweatshirt or the hat on, it kind of signals a warm feeling, at least it seems to, for everyone that's talking here, of like, yeah, that's part of our community. How do you kind of describe that when you see someone and they're part of the thing that you're part of?
It's a great feeling because we all want success. Jaspers help out Jaspers. As you see, Lou, me and him became great friends, and he, on and off the court, you will see great Jaspers, and the connection you receive with alumni, whether that's they're helping you get on Wall Street or maybe an engineering job. So you feel great with seeing other Jaspers on the court, on the plane, anywhere. So it's just great to see that support. And it's a small, tight-knit community.
We're talking with coaches here, Chris and John, assistant coaches, RaShawn, and associate head coach. Chris, I'll swing it back to you and talking about the way that you coach your sport and the philosophies that you've developed when you're talking about how you interact with your guys on your team. Where did you learn a lot of what you teach? Was it from your coach at Manhattan? Is it stuff you've picked up during your professional stops? How do you kind of describe the way you've developed as a coach?
I would describe it as a mixed bag. I try to take from every coach that I ever had, and I've probably had 25, 30 pitching coaches over the years. And now that I'm passing on what I have to student athletes, I try to remember that, cookie cutter isn't necessarily the way to go. I try to remember that what works for me may not work for them. When I say them out loud, these seem like basic fundamentals of coaching, but it took, putting my coaching shoes on and trying it out to actually learn that. I just try to remember that, I remember what it was like to be in their shoes. I just try to find things to relate to them as best I can. The best coaches that I had, or the coaches that I felt most connected to and most related to, were the ones that kind of came down to my level and tried to get to know me a little bit before they were talking at me. I think that's the best way to describe how I want to be as a coach.
Well, and you hit on some fundamentals, and I think it's been a topic throughout this pandemic when teams can't get together in person. Everyone has been able to kind of look to the fundamentals. If you're going to work out on your own, if you're going to have some team conversations, let's kind of get back to the basics a bit. So that's been something that coaches across all sports and leagues have been sharing. John, you look at your experience as an athlete, and then as you became a coach, first, of course, with local programs, and then moving into the college arena. As you've assembled kind of your toolbox, if you will, here of coaching skills, who have you learned the most from? Has it, like Chris described, been multiple coaches? Where have you gotten all of this knowledge from that you now use on the current Jasper teams?
Well, when we talk about 2020, it had to be Kerry Gallagher. I learned a lot from him, number one. But really, I'm like an Irish stew. I'm a mixture of a lot of things. I've been blessed to be coaching around a lot of great coaching. From my high school coach, John Mulligan, and Brother Beelan, look it up in the books, you see how great these coaches were. They weren't just average, they were great. I go into college, and Fred Dwyer, one of the best milers of all time, coached the high school runner that would run 4 minutes for the mile. Frank Gagliano, to this day, he's still coaching at 83 years old. And anybody who knows, who comes to the track meets and hear a guy screaming around the track, that's me. And I didn't just pick that up out of nowhere. I learned that from Coach Gagliano, the enthusiasm he had for his athletes. And I just happened to do it in high school, not realizing I was doing it. And then sometimes people go to coaches and tell this guy to shut up a while. I mean, because the excitement, but I didn't realize I was doing it. So, so I'm a mixture of all these runners and coaches that I'm fortunate with. And then plus, through Matt Centrowitz, I was fortunate to meet probably the guru of track and field was Bill Dillinger. You want to learn about track and the sport and love it, and how I learned a lot about the sport is through this man. He never coached me, but he coached the great Prefontaine. You can look him up and see what this guy did, and the love of the sport, and always learning. That's one thing I've learned through Frank Gagliano. That a couple of years ago when Kerry and I first came on board, he was an 80-year-old coach who's still coaching, and he knows the sport better than anybody. But there was a clinic going on, and he said, I think you guys should come to it and see it. He was always trying to learn something new. No matter how much you think you know, there's always room to learn something better, so you can impart that onto the athletes. And so I think that one of my philosophies in coaching is consistency. And you set goals, and you have to work through those goals. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in the coaches, and you got to believe in the program. But one of the most things I look at is the respect for the individual as both the athletic ability and their potential as a person. And then I realize, even now, that not everyone's going to make it to the NCs, and that's okay. The main thing is that let's show them how to get there. And under Coach Gallagher, we're going to get there. And with Director Centrowitz, there's no doubt about it. With these two in charge, you're going to see good, bigger and better things. And it's going to be exciting. So put your seatbelts on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I think we're all fired up now to get out there and get loose, John. Get out onto the track, maybe. So those words, firing everyone up. RaShawn, you have talked about your relationship with Steve Masiello and all that he's meant to you. So I have no doubt that he has taught you a lot. But as you think about your development as a coach, where have you picked up the most?
I feel like with Coach Masiello, he's a grinder, and he gets the best out of the players, the staff, whoever's around him. He will get the best out of. But one thing you pick up on is how bad he wants it. He's watching film all day, all night. So that's one thing. But most of all, it's trust, because you're able to build strong relationships through trust. And to get a player's trust, you have to be honest to him during good times and in bad times. And last but not least, effort, because that's the one thing you can control. That's the first thing Coach Mass would tell you. That's the one thing you can control is how hard you go. That's between you and yourself. You know what I mean? So that's big. It's effort.
No matter how long you've been coaching, and John just touched on this, but there's always more to learn, right? There's always new things to pick up. RaShawn, as you're now working through year 4 here with the Jasper staff, how have you gotten comfortable in this role as a coach? If you think back to year 1 to your current time now, what's that progression been like for you as a coach? Because you know what you're doing on the court, right? As a player, that's something you've worked on probably since you were a kid, but now becoming a coach, what's that development been like in your mind where you start to feel like you really are comfortable in this coaching role?
Well, Coach Mass allows me to do a lot, whether that's in film and practice, and just to connect with the guys and being a mentor and a leader for them. So I'm able to bridge the gap. I know what it's like to wake up at 6 a.m. and then have a class at 8 a.m. And then I also know how the players feel. So I can help bridge the gap between the players and the coaches, and that's a big role.
John, you touched on it just moments ago that you're always still learning, right? Part of this is that you have to continue to want to educate yourself. But as you transition from being an athlete to a coach, when did you start to feel like you kind of understood the coaching part of it? When did you start to feel comfortable in that coach role?
When I was coaching Bishop Kearney High School, it was then that I realized that it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't always about winning. It's about developing. And developing the athlete, not only to be a better runner, but to be a better person when it's all said and done. And so I would say it was definitely in high school that the passion that I always had passion to be part of running and be part of the sport, but actually coaching is just developing of athletes and girls and women and men. It's just an exciting time. And I'm just so blessed that I'm able to do that.
Chris, you were another athlete that went right from playing into coaching. You mentioned it earlier, feeling fortunate to find a Division I coaching job. They are a challenging position to track down. There's such competition for that. As you moved from playing into coaching, how did you make that transition? You obviously know what you want to do on the field and how you want to perform. How did you work on getting others to kind of carry out your vision?
It's a work in progress to this point, I would say. I've leaned heavily on head coach Mike Cole. Obviously, I played for him years ago. He was an assistant coach when I was a player here at Manhattan. So, trying to learn as much as I can from him and other coaches as well. The other aspect of it is, obviously I pitched when I played, and as a pitcher, we are a very self-centered breed. On game day, all I have to worry about is me and how I'm getting the job done. Doesn't mean I'm not a good teammate, but that's just the nature of that position in that sport. You take that mindset into coaching pitchers. Now I have to worry about 15 or 18, however many pitchers we have at a given time. Now I'm all of a sudden worried about 18 other personalities, schedules, workloads, and everything that comes with it. So that was a learning curve as well. It's different, just because you did it between the lines doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to pass it on to others. So, the answer to your question, kind of long-winded, but I'm always looking. I think I'm always looking for a better way. I guess that's all part of professional development, I would say. It's at the end of the day, I want them to succeed the way my coaches wanted me to succeed. So
you hit on a great point there. And if you think to your time now over the last several seasons, Chris, working with pitchers, you obviously had success as a player. When you think about success as a coach, and John has told us, well, it's not just all about winning, right? There's so much more that we're after here, development of young men and women, all that sort of thing. But Chris, for you, when a pitcher or one of the guys on the team is able to kind of do something better because you help them do that thing better, what's that experience like for you? And how does it compare to when, you're able to strike someone out as a pitcher when you're playing?
Yeah, the word I would use is rewarding. I know that's a word used by coaches, and now I understand why. I never really understood until I had my own perspective. It does feel good. You can't compare the two, doing it yourself and then helping someone else do it. It's apples and oranges, but they're both pretty special feelings. Nothing's ever going to replace the competing, the adrenaline of doing it yourself. But this is as close as you can come, I would say. And I'm interested to know how the other two coaches feel about it. Yeah.
I was going to ask John the same thing. And John, you've, so eloquently told us that what you've learned over this time, right, is of course success is important, but there are so many other factors involved. So what's the most rewarding thing for you when you think about working with athletes, whether it was the high school athletes or now the college athletes here at Manhattan? What's the best thing in your position as a coach? Is it the results? I'm guessing not. Is it something else? How do you describe it?
I believe it's the trust that the athlete has in you. What I've learned is that to be successful runner, there's three things I believe. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe you're the best. If you don't believe that, where you going? You got to believe in the coach. If you don't believe in the coach, where you going? You got to believe in the program. If you take any one of those out, you're not going to be successful. So if the athlete comes to you, because they come to Manhattan because they want to be coached by the great Kerry Gallagher, being around someone like Matt Centrals, learning that the sport, or Patty McGrath from our field guy. He's the head coach of the field. An Olympian, a Hall of Famer. You have to believe in their program, and you got to believe you got to trust them. So when they come out and they throw their furthest shot put, or they run the fastest mile, that's when you can look as a coach and say, they get it, they believe in this. And sometimes it doesn't happen in a week or a month. It may take 2 or 3 seasons. So they got to trust. They have to trust in that coach, trust in the program, trust in the coach, but believe in yourself that you can do it.
RaShawn, you described the joy of the Jasper basketball team winning a championship and some of their big moments that have gone on. But in your role as a coach, how do you gauge your successful impact? What does that look like to you?
I know everyone thinks winning and losing gauges your success level, but I think impacting a young man's lives at the end of the day, seeing them graduate and be successful in life, start a family. I think those are the key things. Yeah, we all want to win and make it to the NCAA tournament and do certain things. But at the end of the day, the 4 years that we able to have contact and make these young men our family, that's the biggest thing for me, is just impacting their lives throughout their time here.
Yeah, and I was thinking back to your playing career, and I know you talked about Coach Masiello being a grinder. You're a grinder as well. To get onto that team, to be a part of it. If you think back to you in freshman year, playing on the basketball team, when did you kind of come to this realization that sports is about more than basketball? Did you know that as a freshman? Did you feel it then, that this can be about so much more than me just making this team and helping them win games? How'd you come to the conclusion where you're at today, where it can be about so much more?
Because eventually the ball is going to start bouncing. Once you're done in the NBA or anywhere, your sport's going to eventually end. Like today, for example, Emmy Andujar, he went through cancer 3 years ago. I was there driving him to chemo. That's my brother. You get long-lasting relationships. And to see him beat cancer and then to come back and have a daughter 3 months ago, that's more than anything to me, So, and then I have my brother Tyler Wilson, who's just learning, who's an up-and-coming coach, who I'm mentoring and try to get him to understand certain things. So I think some of that is better than winning and losing, Yeah,
you bring up a great point. And John, you touched on what you're learning, and you've had such great words to say about the staff that you're a part of now here at Manhattan. But what are some of the things that you try and offer to others, whether it's maybe a younger coach that might want some advice, or if you have an athlete that's maybe thinking about getting into coaching down the road, or someone that just wants to be successful as they move on from Manhattan? What are some of the other things do you find yourself sharing with these student athletes?
Make it fun. Track is fun. Enjoy it. I mean, that's the key. You got to enjoy the sport, but you also got to be real. It's you want to be successful. It all depends what you want to be. You just want to be a recreational runner, then be a recreational. You want to be an NCAA champion, then there's dedication and focus. Again, I'll go back to Kerry. She made it to the world championship because she got in. She became all in to be an elite runner. That's a dedication. That's focus. And I understand kids in college. There's a lot of responsibility. They get juggle a lot of balls up there. There's a reason they put student in front of the athlete. Student comes first. So I understand they got to be focused on their grades, but running is dedication. And I tell the coaches that in high school they maybe talk to me. It really is about enjoying and have a passion for the sport. If you have that passion, it comes out, and then with that they'll become their own person. They get a little piece of everybody, and then it's you. They have their own Irish stew.
I love the Irish stew analogy. That's fantastic. Chris, you've talked about leaning on your fellow coaches at Manhattan to try and learn things as you work your way through. But now being with the program for several years, what would you tell yourself in season 1 or 2? What have you picked up along the way now, if you kind of look back and say, okay, here's a thing or two to be ready for, to think about as you launch this coaching journey coming right off of a professional career?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on what John said about just knowing that everybody's different, and not everyone is going to have the same time frame for how quickly they show whether they're getting it or not. I think I was pretty impatient. If I'm going to critique myself from 2 or 3 years ago, I would say I was pretty unrealistic in my expectations, maybe impatiently expecting them to get it right away. And it might not have been that they weren't able to do it. Maybe it was the way I was explaining it. So just to widen my range of voices, I guess you could say, try different ways to communicate with them, that kind of stuff. Not everyone learns the same way. Some are more visual, some are more vocal, some are more, demonstrative. So that's what I would say.
This has been an excellent chat with our 3 coaches. As we wrap things up, because we have a couple of New York natives on here, we can't end this chat without talking about the impact of being in New York City. RaShawn touched on it earlier, being in the greatest city in the world. I think we're all in agreement here how great New York is if you're part of this Manhattan College family. Chris, the non-native New Yorker, but you've obviously been around and know enough about the city. What impact does being in New York City have on the Manhattan College community, whether it's a draw to athletes, the experience, being close to it, campus not being far? How do you describe that?
Well, it's a great recruiting tool. RaShawn touched on it earlier. Greatest city in the world's right there. It's essentially, that's our campus. We have our, the literal campus in between the walls, but, just having that as a tool to bring people in and especially when we recruit other parts of the country, it's, that's a huge draw for us. I love the city. Even though I grew up an hour away, I mentioned earlier my dad being a New York City fireman. So, I made some trips and some frequent visits growing up down to the city. So it's always been a special place for me. I think it's the best of both worlds. You're in the city, but you're close enough to, you're in the northernmost section of the Bronx too. So if you want to get out of the city, that can be done as well. So I think it's a great mixture.
John, you touched on being a New York City guy and the impact that things like winning that Met championship had, because it was such a localized event and it seemed like it really resonated with you and the rest of the Manhattan College track squad at that time. Just as a New York City native, what has the Manhattan College experience meant to you, and why is it so great to have this campus part of this city?
I'll say one word: Van Cortlandt Park. This is the best place in the country to train. You can do it. You can do it all there. It's right down the block where we live. It's any kid that's worth his brain and salt as far as running. They run on Van Cortlandt Park. You can tell what a kid did just by running that course. Either the Manhattan College Invitational or the different cross country races over the years. It's a tough place to be. New York City is New York, man. It's the best. It's exciting. The opportunity for the students, opportunity to have internships. New York City is the place you want to be. And then when athletes come on campus and see what we offer them, especially as a running program, there's nothing better than that. And you get to see not just your local guys you work out with every day, but you also see the local colleges like Iona or St. John's and things like that. And so you get a feel of the running community of New York City. And I'm not sure many places you can get that. And that's why Manhattan is so special for someone that say, yeah, this is the place I would like to become great, and they can.
Such a great history in New York City for the track and field community. John touched on it a bit, but Van Cortlandt Park, the Armory, the Milrose Games for years with Madison Square Garden, now moving to the Armory. Mm-hmm. It is a city that has long supported running and track and field. And RaShawn, it's a city that has also long supported basketball. It is often said when New York City is strong in college basketball, the whole country is strong in college basketball because of how strong the programs are within the 5 boroughs. You're a native as well. What is being a part of Manhattan College in your hometown meant to you?
It meant a lot. It allowed me to play in Madison Square Garden, where I always had a dream of playing, being from New York City. And it's the media capital of the world. So when you're winning, you're going to be seen all over the place, ESPN, everything. And also, being so close to my family was big. If you ask anybody who knows me, my family comes to support me when I was a player and as a coach. They think they're more of Jaspers than me. So that's also a great part of it too, being so close to them.
Yeah, you mentioned the media, and I know our good friend Kevin Ross, I think I've seen him post once or twice the back cover of one of the New York City tabloids after the Jaspers have gone onto the NCAA tournament after winning the MAC title. There is great support when the teams are playing well. This has been great. Thanks so much to our 3 coaches, Chris, John, and RaShawn. Appreciate everyone joining us here in the comments and submitting your questions and thoughts. And now I'll pass it back over to Whitney.
Thanks, Greg. And thank you to our 3 coaches and everyone for joining today's conversation. If you want more information on any of these 3 programs, you can follow them on social media. Our sports communications team has put all their social media accounts in the chat for you to copy. And if you like today's conversation, make sure to register for next week's Coach Conversations with the topic Coach and Captain Alumni, featuring Brendan Lawler, head coach for women's soccer, and alumni from the program, including dual graduate in 2016 and 2018, Taylor Salkowski, and 2019 graduates Victoria Reese and Emma Saul. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.